Hey everyone, it's Mackenzie at Tuckaway Pines. Today I'm in the main kitchen and I wanted to bring you guys along with me while I make vegetable broth. So I've been saving up my vegetable scraps for a little while now, and it's time for me to turn these scraps into vegetable broth. And I also have actually one bag of chicken bones. A little while ago we had a nice soup chicken, and I just saved the bones so I can kind of throw those in with the vegetables, so it'll be fine. The type of vegetables that I've been saving, because not all vegetables taste good inside of broth. Sometimes like a lot of like spinach or anything like really leafy can give it a bitter taste. So be mindful of that, of course. But I have a variety of onions, mix of yellow, white, red onions, when I'm cooking in the kitchen. I even have garlic in here, some of the garlic, like the paper skin of the garlic. Even if I have like some really small bulbs that are just not worth peeling, I'll just throw them in there so they don't go to waste. And it adds good flavor. I even have some celery. Celery tastes really good in a broth. Mushrooms. I got a bunch of mushrooms in here. Trying to think what else I've been saving. And that's pretty much it. Just onions, mushrooms, celery, garlic. Yeah, I think that's it. And then obviously some chicken bones. So that'll add some good collagen and just good nutrients for your body. So, first of all, so when you have, your vegetable scraps, you're going to need a big stock pot because it'll be essentially kind of making like a vegetable tea. You'll have to have it in water and then simmering on your stovetop for a little while. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump all my stuff inside my pot. Depending on the amount of space, I might need 2 pots. We'll see here. This is the bigger one, so hopefully we're in luck. And, oh yeah, it's looking full already after those 2 bags. Let's see. It did kind of settle down. I think I'll just maybe take some out so it's somewhat even because I'll have another pot. And I'll throw some chicken bones in with this one and then some chicken bones with that one. And then I think at the end I'll just mix it all together once I take the vegetable scraps out because then there'll be more room to work with. So I'll just take some out, not much. And this is all frozen too, so it's not just gross and mushy either. That helps a lot. Should be good. And then, I don't know, just take a good chunk of the chicken, just kind of throw it in there. Maybe you can get the other one. Because like I said, it's all going to get mixed back together. Okay, I got my other pot, so I'm just going to fill that. And I did want to say, I was looking up what the difference between a broth and a stock is. And the difference is that I believe it's the stock that has salt, whereas the broth does not. Maybe it's the other way around, I can't remember, but it's with the salt. That's the difference. And I usually don't put salt in just because when I do go to use it, I can just add the salt when I cook. That way I can control the amounts. But everything is in here now. Just kind of mash it down. And then I'm going to take everything to the sink and just fill it up so everything's nice and covered. Okay, so I have both of my pots filled with water and the vegetables, of course. And I have them on my stove. I have the burners turned on like a medium-high heat because I want to get it to a boil first, and then we'll bring it down to a simmer. Now this is a really easy process. It just does take some time. I'm going to have these simmer for about 3, maybe 3.5 hours. That way it gives it time to obviously break everything down, but get all those flavors and nutrients out too into the broth. So. And of course, all those bones can break down as well, so that'll be good. Get that extra collagen in there. And just mixing everything in, make sure it's all kind of under the water. Some stuff will float up, and that's okay. Just occasionally kind of push it down, stir it up. That way everything can evenly get heated. So yeah, like I said, we're going to bring this up to a boil, and then when we get there, I'm going to turn it down to a nice simmer and put lids on top of it and just let it cook down. Okay, everything is finally up to a boil. It took a little while because these are such large pots and there's just so much in here. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the lids on these pots. So I get all the stuff off the spoon. I'm going to put the lids on these pots, and then I'm going to turn my temperatures down to a low heat simmer. Probably low heat because, again, these are so big and full. And probably number 2. And yeah, we just need to wait for about, I'm probably going to let these go because, again, like I have so much, for about maybe 3 to 4 hours. We'll see just how I feel in the time that we have, because that's the only thing. It's really simple process. It just takes some time, especially if you do it this way. I've heard a lot of people, they'll use like a crock pot or like a slow cooker and kind of put it on low and let it just hang out for a couple hours throughout the day while they can kind of get stuff done. So I'm kind of working in intervals today, so I'm still able to get stuff done. It's just got to divide it up this way. And my crock pot, honestly, probably wouldn't be big enough to do this, like all of this together. So it kind of this system kind of works well in my favor, at least for the time being. So, all right, we'll see you back in a couple hours. Okay, so my broth has been simmering for about 3.5 hours. I just turned the heat off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a slotted spoon and try and spoon out most of these chunks into a bowl that I have right here. And then we'll go on to straining the rest. Okay, I got the majority of all the big pieces strained out of both pots here. Now there's still quite a bit of liquid in here. I was hoping I could maybe combine the pots into one pot and then strain them off in another, but I think I'm going to have to get a third pot. So what I'm going to do is get a third pot, and then I have this strainer here, and I'm going to set the strainer into the third pot. And I also have some cheesecloth I'm going to line the strainer with. So that way I'm going to pour the broth in, and hopefully it'll catch any of those little pieces that are still kind of in here that I couldn't fully get out. So we're going to do that next. Okay, here's my third pot. And then I'm going to place the strainer inside of it just like that, and it kind of rests on the edge. And then I have some cheesecloth, and I'm just going to kind of set that inside the strainer. So it'll help catch those little extra fine bits that are still floating around in there. So there's that. And now I'm going to very carefully strain this liquid off to get all that extra vegetables out. let all that goodness strain out, because that's all your nutrients and stuff, all your flavoring. Okay, put that in there. And now we have half of our broth strained. It's really awesome. So, and like I said, because we have so much, I'm gonna rinse this pot out that we just used. This one, I'm gonna rinse it out, get it not clean, but get all the stuff out of it. And then I'll do the same thing I did here, but with this pot back here. So, okay, I got my stock pot just rinsed out, got all the vegetable bits out of it. I'll put my strainer on it. And then I got a new piece of cheesecloth to use, so I'm just going to line the strainer with that. If I can open it. Okay. Just like that. And then very carefully again, I'm going to dump this broth into there and strain out all the bits. Now for all these scraps and even this cheesecloth that this stuff's in, I'm actually going to take it all out to the compost. Cheesecloth is just cotton, so that can break down, and that's okay for the environment. And yeah, all these scraps, even though they're all, cooked down and whatnot, they'll still break down nicely out in the compost pile. So that's where all that's going to go. Okay. So now we have our 2 pots nicely strained out. Nothing's floating in here. All the big chunks are out. It's all cooked down, and honestly, it smells terrific. So next, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to kind of store this so it stays long term. You can freeze it if you have maybe ice cube trays or freezable bags or containers of some sort. That's a good way to store it, and you can bring it out as you need it for soups and stuff. It does keep in the fridge, but only for a short period of time, about, I want to say maybe a week or 2. So, but what I'm going to be doing is canning it, and I'll show you what I do to do that. Okay, so in order to can vegetable broth, you're obviously going to need canning jars, but then you'll also need a pressure canner. This is something you can't water bath can. I know it's kind of like the easier, more simpler process, but since broth is a low acid food or liquid, it needs to go through the pressure canner. And for those that aren't very experienced with canning, you'll have to know your altitude, of course, because it's based off of sea level, and because the pounds per pressure that you need to can under is affected by how far you are from the sea level. So look that up before you get started. My altitude is around 1,500 feet above sea level, so I'll be using a gauged canner so that it'll be at 11 pounds of pressure. If you use a weighted gauge, I believe that's 10 pounds of pressure. And the processing time for chicken broth or vegetable broth is only 35 minutes for quarts, because I'll be canning in quart jars. So I have my canner all set up. I have it filled to the appropriate level of water, and I have it warming up on my stovetop. You want to kind of get it warmed up to like a simmer. And then I have my jars over here in the sink. I have them soaking in hot, soapy water. I put them away clean, but it's nice to just kind of warm the glass up before you put them in here so they're not shocked. And also just to kind of rinse them out real quick with some soap. That way I know that they are clean for sure. No bacteria or anything's in there. So I'm going to rinse out my jars and I'll bring you guys over to the counter over here and we will ladle in our broth. Okay, so I rinsed out all my jars just to make sure all the soap and stuff was out of them. They're still pretty warm. And then I have a jar funnel. That way it makes it easier to get the liquid into the jar and not all over the place. And of course a ladle to ladle everything in. For your head space or the space above, you want about 1 inch. So maybe probably at where the shoulder starts, the shoulder of the jar kind of turns into the neck. So just slightly below the threading where your band would go. So kind of gives you a good idea because when it goes through the pressure canner, to create that vacuum, you could have some siphonage, I think they call it, where some of the inside comes outside and it could cause a sealing failure. So we don't want that. But I'm just going to go ahead and start filling up these jars. I have 7 out here right now. I don't know how much this is going to get me. We're going to start with 7, and if I need more, I can just throw them in the warm soapy water, soak them for a minute or 2, and we'll just keep going. So. Try not to make any big mess here. This stuff smells so delicious. I had so many different vegetables. I think I mentioned them earlier in the video. Red onion, yellow onion, white onion. I think there's even some table onion mixed in here, so a lot of onion. A lot of celery, some garlic bulbs, the skin from the garlic, so a little bit of that. Bunch of mushrooms. You know, if I had any mushrooms that were going to kind of go bad or getting slimy, I'll just throw them in a bag. And let's see what else. Oh, actually, carrots as well. Carrots are a good touch to this, so that was nice. I forgot I had a bunch of carrots in here. And I'll just need to add a little more. That should be good. And here we go. It's 1 jar, and look at that color. That's probably from the red onion mixed with like the mushrooms. I just think that's a very beautiful color, and again, it just smells delicious. So I'm just going to keep filling up my jars here. Okay, so from that 1 pot, I got 7 quarts, which I think is pretty cool, and I'll probably get about 7, maybe 8 out of this pot. But I'm going to just start off with these, and the next step is pretty important. It kind of makes or break your, you know, whether you're going to have a seal or not, and that is to wipe your rims before you put your lids and bands on. I like to take some clean paper towel, and I have a little bowl here of just white vinegar. And I just like to wipe the threading and the top of the rim just to ensure that it's clean, no oils, no food particles, no other liquid is on there or around there because that could affect the seal as well. And the vinegar is a natural cleaner, so that helps. Just go around and wipe your rims, because it'll make a difference. It would suck if you didn't do that and you had a little piece of food and then you did all this work and the jar didn't seal. So just take that extra time. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm just going to go along and put my lids on. And then my bands. Now with your bands, you don't want to just crank them on tight. You want to kind of, tighten them till you start feeling that resistance, and then just do like just a little bit more. So it's finger tight, they call it, finger tight. So you don't need wrist tight or elbow tight, just your fingers. And that'll be just enough so the air on the inside can escape and for it to seal nicely. Because you want to create that vacuum. That's what keeps everything, preserved. Just finger tight. And also go through your bands and make sure none of them are rusty or bent or anything like that, because that can also affect the way your jar seals as well, especially if they're bent. There. I'm always afraid I do them too tight. Just like that. And if you do it too tight, then none of the air can escape and it doesn't seal properly. Just making sure. And then that's one. Okay, now everything is all sealed, clean, sealed, and banded. And you can probably see my canner is steaming really nicely. It's simmering, so I'm going to put these puppies in and we'll start venting. Okay, so I have all my jars in here. It's packed pretty tight. I'm at the max. I can only hold 7 quarts in here. So the main thing is just make sure they're not touching, essentially, so when it does get really hot in here, they're not bouncing together, and so they don't crack or break or anything like that. So all my jars are in here, all tucked in nicely. I'm going to put on my lid. The model canner that I have is a weighted canner, is a gauged canner. So I have my gauge here, and then I'll have to put in my pressure regulator is what it's called. But first things first, I put on my lid and I secure it, and then I let it start to steam. They call it venting. Once you see a stream of steam coming out of this little like nozzle, if you will, you want to start a timer and let it vent for 10 minutes. And then after that 10 minutes, you just put your regulator on, depending on your model, and that's when you can start coming up to that proper pressure based on your elevation. So I will bring you guys back once it starts steaming, and we can start our vent timer. Okay, so my canner is finally starting to steam out steadily too, mind you. So I'm going to start my 10-minute timer, let it do this for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and put the regulator on. Okay, our 10-minute timer went off. You can see it's steaming really, really good. So now I'm just going to put my pressure regulator on, and it'll start going, the gauge will start building pressure. And for me, I need to pressure at 11 pounds per pressure because of the gauge, the dial gauge. And that's when I'll start my 35-minute timer. Okay, we finally made it up to pressure. For me, I have to be at 11 pounds. It's actually a little over around 12, which that's okay for me. I'd rather be a little over than under by any means. So I feel like it is safe to start my timer. And for quarts, which is what I'm canning, You can at 35 minutes. 35 and start. So we will see you in 35 minutes. Okay, so our 35 minutes is up. I am going to turn everything off, turn the stove off and that, and then I'm just going to let this sit and cool down. I don't want to touch it. Obviously, it is extremely hot, and I don't want to go taking off the pressure regulator, because if it depressurizes too fast, it could shock our jars in here and cause a lot of problems we don't want. So I'm just going to let it cool down naturally, do its thing, and then we'll come back, pop open our top, and take our jars out, and then start our next round. So in the meantime of this cooling down, I'm going to get our next wave of jars all ready to go. Okay, so our gauge is completely down to 0. It's down to pressure. I've taken off the pressure regulator as well. So now I'm going to remove the lid very carefully. It is still really, really warm. Just set this right here. Now I'm going to use my jar grabbers. You're going to need these without burning or hurting yourself. And just take them out and just let them rest overnight on this on these rags here, just so it doesn't ruin the counter. But I'm going to let them just sit here overnight so they can completely cool down, and then I will remove the bands, make sure all the jars are completely sealed, label, date them, and then put them on my shelf. So. Alright, here's our first 7 quarts of chicken/vegetable broth. Like I said, I'm going to let these kind of cool here. I won't mess with them until tomorrow. That way they're at room temperature. I can work with them. I can make sure they're all sealed, and I can label and date them to put them on my shelf. So I'm going to get ready to start my next wave of jars. Okay, so I am finally done canning all our vegetable/chicken broth. We have a total of 14 quarts. So everything is still pretty warm. I'm going to let it just kind of sit here on these towels overnight, let them cool down, come back to room temperature, and finish sealing completely. I got a couple of them that still need to, seal up, which is fine. It'll take a little while because they're still really warm. But, yeah, so I'm going to let these chill, and then tomorrow I'll label and date everything, and then I'll put them out on my shelf. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a neat way on reducing waste and saving a lot of money, because just imagine how much money you would have to spend to get this much broth. So just a little bit of time saves a lot of money. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any other fun canning adventures that we have here on the homestead. Bye guys, have a good day.